Wanda told me myth can be more than just stories handed down through the generations or words on a page. Myth can be a compass.
The Earth unleashed a fever to fight this infection. Its original and rightful rulers, the Titans. For thousands of years, these creatures have remained in hiding around the world. And unless all the Titans are found, our planet will perish, and so will we.
There's more out there.
What do you mean, more? This world never belonged to us. It belonged to them. The question is how long before they take it back.
The superspecies is far beyond the size limitations of any primate seen on Earth. Kong is more than just an animal. Kong is a god. I, Houston Brooks, geological advisor to Monarch, hereby state on record that the myth is real. It's more wondrous and more terrifying than any myth could ever hope to communicate.
This planet doesn't belong to us. Ancient species owned this Earth long before mankind.
This isn't just a graveyard, it's a feeding ground. We walk through the bones of Kong's ancestors like walking in the shadow of fallen gods.
Great beasts once roamed this world, as big as mountains.
Tall as a mountain, with a beating heart that burns as bright as the sun.
Hey, what's up everybody and welcome. Let me get right to the point. Many of us have been led to believe many things about the world that we live in. Now, many of these things that we are led to believe are not things that we are flat out told or instructed or taught, but we are conditioned to believe many of the things that we do about our history, about who we are, and about the world we live in. I'm going to be very blunt just to begin this video. Titans exist. Titans have been a part of our history, a part of our culture, our myths and legends, and quite frankly have a lot to do with the shape of our world and geography and how we came to be where we are today. So, the reason I'm doing this video is because there is a new Godzilla movie coming out in 2019. As you saw, a part of that preview, thanks to my subscribers for pointing out the preview to me, but a part of that preview basically comes right out and admits and says that the Titans existed, they pre-existed humanity, they pre-existed the quote-unquote gods and giants. And in the movie Godzilla, it's for the first time, to my knowledge, being portrayed as a reality. At least in the movie world of Godzilla, it's being portrayed that this is real, that this in fact does exist. So the Titans existed. Now, what are Titans? Whenever I say Titans, for those of you unfamiliar with the concept, briefly let me explain. We have humanity, which you are familiar with. Before that, we had the gods or the giants, who also go by many different epithets, many different names, many descriptions across time and cultures. And then before them, we have the primordial beings who pre-existed them all, which were the Titans. The Titans are significantly different based on their size. Their size alone stands them apart. So when I'm talking about the Titans, I am making a huge difference between a giant being, a being that may be up to 30 feet tall or whatnot. I'm talking about beings that are the size of skyscrapers and mountains. So those are the Titans. They existed. I'm going to be checking my notes. Welcome, Carlos. I'm going to be referencing my notes as we go over this video. And as I do that, let's go ahead and bring up something to look at here. Okay, so let me get the notes out. So what is a Titan? Not a giant. Of course, Titans themselves are gigantic. They are very large beings, but they are not the giants of old, the giants who we're talking about. And sometimes we get the two mixed up, and it's okay because both of them existed. And it's understandable that we would get these things mixed up because this is stuff that we're not taught. This is not anything that we are taught in schools. Like I said, these myths and legends and historical facts are presented to us as fiction. You see, the world that we live in, what our controllers like to do is they like to take reality and redistribute it back to us in the form of entertainment and amusement, basically. So that's what a Titan is. It is a primordial being, the first inhabitants, the terraformers. Terra means land or earth or ground, and they are the ones who shaped the land. That was one of their primary responsibilities in all of the cultures across the world and across time. This is one of the things that they describe the Titans as far as their job. Why are they here? You know, and it was to prepare the world for the beings that would come. Titans are magical creatures. Now, when I talk about magic on my channel, I talk about magic as a reality, not magic as in some misunderstood, you know, lasers coming out of my fingertips type of a thing. Magic is a reality, and it holds our world together. Our entire world, our existence is magic. There's magic everywhere. You see, one of the problems is that the people who are now in control have tried to erase the existence of magic from our thoughts and from our minds so that we don't recognize it as something that holds our world together, something that we use and manipulate every day. All of you are workers of magic and manipulators of magic, sometimes selfishly, sometimes unselfishly. And I just want to thank everyone in advance for any donations. Rulaine, thank you. Any donations during the course of this video are actually going to go to an on-location video that I'm going to be doing next month in the Grand Canyon meteor crater and the petrified forest in Arizona. So thank you in advance to everyone. Now, let's go ahead and move forward. So, they're magical beings. When I say magical, it does. You have to understand that the Titans are typically portrayed as being stupid. In our world today, whenever we see a titanic figure, it tends to be. It comes with this envisioning of a giant lugging around a huge club to hit something with. You know, we don't give the Titan race the credit and the honor and the respect of having been the first beings. Very intellectual, very smart, they have a lot of knowledge, and are immortal. So, those are the Titans. They have been assigned the task of terraforming the earth. They were the first emanation between the aether, or the ether, and substance. Okay? So, the ether is the energy, the all-permeating energy that touches and is inside of and comprises all things. It is the energy that connects us all. And these Titans are the first emanation in our realm between the aether, which is sort of the invisible energetic quality, or some would say spiritual, and substance, which is the physical. So they brought with them many of the etheric qualities, and we would call that magic. Thus, they were godlike and magical beings. They may have been more crystalline, which is my opinion right now, and silicon-based. We are a carbon-based. Humanity is known to be carbon-based, And one step above carbon on the elemental chart is silicon. And that's why I say they may be a silicon-based race. And I talk about that in many of my videos. Now, they may have been portrayed as ugly, life getting more and more beautiful as it progresses, as it evolves, as it works itself out. So that might be one of the reasons why we consider the Titans to have been monsters and why we portray them as monsters. So let me go ahead and check the notes here, and we're going to go over a few things here. One thing I do want to mention, something that Titans are not, which is what is implied in our school system, is that Titans are planets. Titans are not planets. Titans were actual beings that walked on the ground and warred with other beings, and they were here and are just as real as you being here right now. That would be like someone saying you didn't really exist. It's a metaphor. You are a metaphor for a star or whatever it may be. Titans physically, actually, and historically existed and walked our world. I would imagine, I'm going to hit various points here. I'm looking at my notes right now. And later on, I'm actually going to get into all of the pictures that you see on the slideshow. I would imagine that whenever a Titan is nearby, that it's much like in the movie Jurassic Park. Whenever you hear the Tyrannosaurus or the Brontosaur and it's nearby, how it boom kind of shakes the ground. I can't imagine dinosaurs the size that they're being portrayed in the movies and in school systems, that they could even shake the ground that much. Elephants don't shake the ground. Larger animals don't. We don't feel them. We don't hear them. But a being the size of a mountain would shake the ground. And the reason I point that out is because Jurassic Park is an analogy. It's a metaphor for those beings that pre-existed humanity, which are known as a crystalline type of being or a silica being, which gives them the appearance of having scales or being lizard looking. This was the kingdom of the dinosaurs, and I talked about that in the last video. Okay, so let's move forward here. Oh, Godzilla. Now, many of you are familiar with Godzilla. That's why I wanted to do this video. Godzilla is an icon, not because it's so cheesy, it's such a unique idea. And during my research, many websites online will try to get you to think that the concept of titanic monsters or titans and things of that nature first came out in the early 1900s, around the time that Godzilla first came out. Godzilla and those types of titanic monsters are known as kaiju in I think it's Japanese, I want to say. Now, listen to this. This is very interesting. The word kaiju translates to strange beasts or strange beast. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't there also another popular movie that is out right now called Strange Beasts? And it actually is directly related with magic and wizardry and things like that. The Titans are known as the strange beasts. So kaiju translates into strange beasts. We also have the movie Strange Beasts. Other of the Titan kaiju class, at least in the movie genre, they include Godzilla, Mothra, King Ghidorah, Mechagodzilla, Rodan, and many others. Those are some of the more popular ones. But we have seen their caricature types in other places. For example, I'll go ahead and list a few of these here. If you've seen Thor Ragnarok, right? At the end of the movie, there are, if you don't want spoilers, don't watch the rest of this video, because I'm going to talk about lots of different movies here. But at the end of Thor Ragnarok, we have Surtur, and Surtur is a Titan. And Surtur, according to Norse mythology, will be there in the end, and that's why that movie was called Thor Ragnarok. Surtur is one of the Titans that returns in Norse mythology to destroy the world by fire. Not all of the world, because according to Norse mythology, they also say that after the return of the gods all fight against one another, including the Titans, and humanity survives. Humanity goes to the north, and there are two people, Leaf, and Leaf is the man that survives, the human man, and Leaf, I forgot the woman's name. One moment. So there's Leaf and there's Leaf's wife, Leaf Thrasir, I think her name is. And so what they do is they head north. They head towards the center of the world. And in Norse mythology, it says that they hide, and it's debated on the translation, but they hide amongst the trees, they hide in the Sylvan place, or they hide in the world tree itself. They wait out the cataclysm, and humanity is reborn through these two individuals. So that's Surtur in Thor Ragnarok. We also have Pacific Rim. Obviously, it's about Titans, right? It's about the kaiju, and it's all very symbolic of the Titan race. These are not concepts that we just come up with out of nowhere. There is nothing new under the sun. Everything has already been done. Everything works in cycles. And all of these movies that I'm going to list, and it's not limited to movies or television, but books and commercials and so many things out there, we did not make these things up. We didn't think it would be interesting to just have a humanoid giant walking around. It's historical, and we remember it. Our subconscious and our spirit memory contains this information. This is stuff that subconsciously we know. Collectively in our subconscious, we know these things. This is a reality, and this is why things like the Titans are gaining so much popularity, why people enjoy them, why they're featured in so many different things, because they are a part of our history. Try as they might to erase that history, try as they might to distract us from that history, all of these alternative concepts are reemerging in our day and in our time, and there is a reason, a strong and viable reason why so many people are waking up to so many new ideas, which are really old ideas that are being rediscovered. Titans being one of them. What else do we have? I Kill Giants. There's a movie called I Kill Giants. Troll Hunter. There's a cartoon called Troll Hunters as well. A Monster Calls. BFG, Stranger Things has a Titan in it. Cloverfield, the monster Cloverfield is a Titan. Godzilla, of course. The Mist has Titans in it as well. Rampage, the new movie that's just come out, which looks incredibly cheesy, but I mean, that's why they do that. That's why they are doing these things. Because one, they are ingrained in us. Okay? It is a part of our anatomy. Our DNA remembers and it carries the coding, as well as our spirit memory. And that's why these things keep popping up. We also, of course, have Clash of the Titans and Transformers. Transformers are a form of the Titan race. Actually, Optimus Prime means like the highest original. He is the primordial being, and that's why he's so large. That's why all of them are so large. I also wanted to say in the chat, by the way, if you're watching and you would like to throw out examples, please remember the chat itself is also being recorded. So if you have examples as well, put them out there in the chat of movies, televisions, whenever whatever Titan examples that you have, that would be helpful for informational purposes on this video. Now, some references. We also have a movie that was called The Titan, which I'll talk about next time I see the picture pop up probably. But there was a movie called The Titan, which is really strange because they don't portray the protagonist as a massive figure, but there is a lot of esoteric symbolism in that movie that harkens back to this time of ancient Oblivion, this prehistoric world that we have not been taught and that has been suppressed from us. Which, by the way, is why, if you were wondering why so many other books that used to be considered the Bible or other religious material, why those things were not included in the official canonization is because they reference this primordial world and these primordial beings. They don't want us to know about the primordial beings. And that's why those things, like the Book of Enoch, for example, was not included in the Bible, specifically because it reveals too much information about our past. If they take away our past from us, then we don't know who we are. We don't know what to do with the present time. We have no purpose for the present because we don't know anything about our own past, which comprises who we are and why we're here. That's why we have so many of those types of questions. So there's the movie The Titan, which, by the way, is on Netflix. So you can check that out. There is Remember the Titans. of course, right? Now, I know it's about a football team, but it's Remember the Titans. These things are all known as soft disclosure. Now, hard disclosure would be, the president of the United States coming right out and saying, I would like to address the nation. Oh, that's Obama, sorry. But however the president sounds, okay? But he would come right out and say, I'd like to address the nation. Titans are real. I know that you have been told that they are not, etc. That would be direct disclosure. That's a hard disclosure. Soft disclosure is just putting it out there, and it doesn't matter the means by which it is put out there. It doesn't matter how it comes across. So, these people who rule over us, they have a strict set of rules and laws and guidelines that they follow. One of those is that they must disclose all of this information to us, but they don't have to disclose it any particular way. They can choose the avenue by which they disclose these things. And welcome to the new subscriber who just joined. There's also Titanic, of course, right? The movie about the large ship, Titanic, referencing the Titans. There's Titan truck. There's a truck called Titan, right? There is Titans and Giants. Here in America, we have a football team. One is called the Titans. The other one is called the Giants, which would not surprise me if those two teams battled each other in some final Super Bowl type showdown or whatnot. But anyhow, then we have the Singularity, the movie Singularity, I believe it's called. And the protagonist of the movie Singularity is a being known as Kronos, which is an artificially intelligent, advanced artificial intelligence, basically. But the word Kronos stems from one of the most famous Titans of all. Kronos, let me talk about Kronos for a moment. First, what does Kronos mean? Kronos comes, I always check the chat to see if someone beats me to it. Kronos is two words. It's kron, which is the same as our word corn. Okay, follow me. Kron is also pronounced in ancient languages that C sound was pronounced ha, like a guttural sound in the throat. So it was horn, which means horn, which means the horned one. Kronos means the horned one. That's why we have a cornucopia, which is the horn of plenty. And corn is actually named after that because it looks like a horn. So, Kronos. Let me give you a brief breakdown on the history of the world, basically. So, in the beginning, you have our realm that was brought into existence. The first inhabitants, like I said, were the Titans. They were a blend of the ether and the physical. Now, the Titans created beings after them, which were the gods, which were the giants of old. And one of the Titans, to begin with, it's said that there were 12 original Titans, 6 male, 6 female. And often, whenever you see these numbers, numerology is very important because many times the ruling class, the elite of the world, or the elite of the world, they will use these numbers as a sort of reverent logo, or it's a reference to something. For example, the movie 9. The movie 9 is directly related, the number 9 is directly related esoterically to the Titans, and I'll explain why in a little while. Okay, so one of those Titans, one of those 12, was Kronos. Now, here's what happened. The first two of the Titans were Gaia and Uranu. Okay, now, I want to talk about Uranu for a moment. The reason why this really gets to me is because Uranu today is pronounced Uranus. It's done purposefully. It's quite disrespectful in my mind, but it's also unneeded. That's not how it's pronounced. Uranus comes from Ur Anu, right? Which is the god of the heavens. Uranus or Uranu was considered the titan of the sky. He was the sky god. And the other one was Gaia, which was Mother Earth. Okay, so in the beginning, at the very beginning of all things, we had the physical, the land, the Mother Earth, who is Gaia, and we have Uranu, who was the heavens. Now, Uranu and Gaia, they mated and they produced children. Now, whenever I talk about these things, for example, like mating, please allow yourself to think of these things outside of your familiarity with them. They may have been entirely different at that time. However, those words are the best descriptors for the time that we live in. It does not have to mean that they mated in the same way that we mate today. Okay, just want to throw that out there. So, Uranu and Mother Earth, Gaia, they produced the Titans, essentially, the 12 original Titans. Kronos was one of them. They also produced let's see if I can pronounce this correctly. They produced, well, I forgot where it is, but anyways, they produced these monsters, these beings who are titanic. One class of them were the Cyclops, which you're familiar with, which is the one eye in the middle of the forehead giants, right? The other one were the 100-hand race, okay? Now, Uranu basically saw these children as being ugly, basically. So he kind of locked them up within Gaia. He sealed them up within Gaia and did not allow them to essentially be born out into the world and to enjoy the world. That pissed off Gaia. She didn't like it. So she conspired with the other Titans, namely Kronos. She invented a weapon. She invented a sickle or a hook. She gave it to Kronos. Kronos' other name is Saturn. Kronos has many names, okay? But think of Saturn, okay? She made Saturn's hook, his sickle, okay? And Saturn took that hook and castrated the heavens, which was Uranu. Now, when he had done this, basically this caused more and more strife, and the strife continues on. It's all a big family bickering. It's a big family fight. You're involved. I'm involved. We don't really know it, but we're a part of the story, believe it or not. So that's where Kronos gets his sickle from. Now, Kronos is Father Time. Kronos is the Lord of Death. Kronos is in charge of many things, but his symbol has always been that hook. And this is very important when it comes to understanding the esoteric symbolism of elite groups like the Illuminati or the Freemasons and the people who rule our world, the gods themselves, or the descendants, the demigods, etc. They use the hook all of the time as the symbol that we can take down the Titans, that's who we are. Don't mess with us. That's what the hook stands for. It basically says we can defeat anybody, okay? We are of, the hook also implies to be attached to or to be of whatever it may be. We are of the Titans. We are the native born, basically. You know, we are the original owners. We are the original inhabitants. And that's exactly what is said in this movie, this new Godzilla movie. So anyhow, that is Kronos. Now, I'm going to go a little further on because what happens is there's this prophecy that's given to Kronos, basically saying, in the same manner that you rebelled against your father, your children will rebel against you, and one of your children will ultimately kill you. Now, that child turned out to be Zeus, okay? What Kronos did to try to prevent this prophecy, and this story is reiterated across religions and cultures, and there's different names for, you know, the different characters involved and whatnot. Excuse me. So just keep that in mind, okay? What happened with Zeus is that all of his brothers were eaten by Kronos. And typically, so if you ever see like an old painting or anything, and it's got this godlike figure who's eating a baby or eating a child, that's a cartoonified version of what really happened, okay? Kronos eats and swallows whole these other gods. Zeus is switched out with a rock, which is also, for me, very interesting, and I'll talk about why later. But Zeus, they basically put this huge rock in a swaddling cloth, and Kronos, aka Saturn, eats that, thinking that he just ate Zeus. But Zeus goes, and he gets raised by these fairy-type beings, and he comes back, and he poisons Kronos to get him to vomit up his brothers, and I'm not sure if there were sisters in there, but Zeus is seen as the redeemer, the one who challenges Kronos, and he brings him down. Ultimately, what Zeus ends up doing is he ends up obliterating Kronos. He ends up getting rid of Kronos. And I think in the introduction, let me know in the chat if you saw this in the introduction, because I can't remember if it's in there, but I did include a clip from the movie Alexander. In this clip, which was not released for years and years and years and years, in this clip, Philip is talking to a young Alexander the Great. And Philip says to him, you know, it's said that whenever Zeus destroyed the Titans, that he took their pieces and he mixed it with humanity because he was so upset. And that's going to play a key part of this video. The mixing of the Titan DNA with the human DNA. Many of you have already come right out and told me, you know, I think that we are the Titans. I believe that there is some truth to that. So that's the short version of what is known as the Titanomachy. The Titanomachy. Titanomachy basically means Titan, and then Maki means battle. For you Star Trek fans out there, there's actually a group called the Maquis, and Maquis means war or battle. So the Titanomachy is the presumably 10-year period in which the gods or the giants fought against the Titans. Now, I also want to throw this out there. Just because there was a war between the gods and the Titans, or the giants and the Titans, does not mean that those were the two sides. That if you were as tall as a skyscraper, that you were the enemy, or if you were a god, you were the enemy. They had factions, just like we have factions today. Some Titans joined with the gods. You see, this was all based around their idea of morality. They agreed sometimes and they disagreed sometimes. But I just want you to know, when the Titans battled the gods, that there were a little bit of both on both sides. Okay, for the most part, the Titans and the gods battled. But there were factions. Okay, so let me go ahead and check the notes here, see where we are. Oh, okay, let me finish up some of the other references. So we did Titanic, the truck, the singularity. Oh, God of War. There are a lot of video games, by the way. Titans are huge in video games in like the past 10 years or so. God of War actually features all of the Titans, many of the Titans. And this guy who defeats Ares, he ends up fighting against the Titans. There's also another video game called Xenoblade Chronicles, in which, according to my knowledge, I have never played it, but the whole video game takes place on the backs of these ancient Titans. Like you're like they are the land, and this is important. This is an important part of the life of the Titans, is that they became a part of our world, a part of our geography. That they became Earth when they died, and I'll talk about that in a little while as well. Of course, there's Ant-Man. You know, Ant-Man is able to grow to titanic size. There's the Rockbiter from the Neverending Story. Jack and the Beanstalk, the Jolly Green Giant, Paul Bunyan. These are all tales, fairy tales. And the word fairy is directly related to the ancient giants or the gods. They are the Vaeri tales. They are the stories passed on through time, not mythical as in non-existent or as in made up, but factual in story form. That's what those are. Okay, so those are some examples. Where does the word Titan come from? Now, I just want to put this out there before I go ahead and tell you what my idea is. Whenever you look up word origins, the scholars of the world are constantly debating word origins because, quite honestly, they don't know much about the word origins, so they make educated guesses that are based on their education, their school system, the way that they were taught to deconstruct these words. Oftentimes, I have found that they're wrong. Oftentimes, I have found that they gave it a good try, but it doesn't quite match up. And my studies make more sense to me whenever I discover the origins of various words, or the possible origins of various words. Now, I'm not saying that I know it all or I'm smarter than, the the intellectuals out there. But I just want to sort of give that out to you guys, so that you can know I have some humility. It doesn't, just because I say here's where I'm coming from, it doesn't mean I'm absolutely right. If anything, go check the things that I say to see how you feel about it. That being said, the word Titan. Now, what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to quote a book that I've read. I believe the book is The Two Babylons. I can't remember the author, but the quote says, Satan's name among the devil worshippers of Kurdistan is Shaitan, with an SH basically at the beginning. Shaitan, which is from the Chaldean Titan. The Chaldean, which is essentially Babylonian, the Chaldean language often transforms the SH sound, or the S sound, into a T sound. Here's an example. In Hebrew, the word shekel, which is a monetary unit, shekel in Chaldean is pronounced tekel. The Hebrew word seraphim is translated in Chaldean as teraphim. The Babylonian counterfeit of the heavenly cherubim or seraphim. And that, like I said, that's from the book The Two Babylons. I believe I read that book when I was going through my Messianic Jewish phase, when I was studying the Old Testament. So here is my interpretation of the word Titan. First of all, we have the last portion, the suffix, which is the on. On typically, according to my studies, usually means belonging to or one of the. Okay? So one of the what? It's T or T-E-T, because there really are no vowels in the ancient languages. So, tet, essentially, the tet on. Now, tet is a letter in ancient Phoenician and Hebrew. And there are other ways to pronounce tet in other languages as well. But I want to talk about the letter tet, because tet directly correlates. Every letter in every alphabet has a number that represents it. This is basic numerology. So every letter has a number that represents it. The number tet is the 9th letter, and therefore it represents the number 9. They are the tet on. They are those of the 9, you could say. Now, the letter tet, I believe it's already been up on the screen, but it's simply drawn as a circle with an X right in the middle, or a cross right in the middle. Now, think about that and allow your experience in life with various religions to sort of sink in and think, have I seen that symbol before with the circle and the X in the middle or the cross in the middle? I think if you think about it, you've seen it. So, one example I think I put up was the X-Men logo, which is a direct reference to those who have the DNA of the gods, those who are directly related and thus have certain attributes. They are the mutants in the movies who have certain powers and whatnot, and it's because they're directly related to the gods themselves. They are the X-Men, or those of the Tet, or the 9, right? There's also a mountain range here in the United States, and it's called the Grand Tetons. Grand Tetons. Grand means large, gigantic, right? Now, if you look up the word Tetons and the explanation for this mountain range, you will read about how some French settlers thought that the mountain range looked like huge jugs, okay? And so they called them the Grand Tetons, because Teton is one way of saying breast in French. It's not, from what I understand, the main way of saying it, but it is one way that you could say that. However, it's my belief that Grand Teton more accurately translates into large Titan, and the mountain range is named the Large Titan. It's not just that one either. There are many, many mountain ranges in our world that are called the Sleeping Giant or the Sleeping Woman, or, you know what I mean? They're basically described as being these titanic beings that became a part of the earth. And that gets into mud fossil theory, which I'll talk about a little later on. Okay, let me just check the notes here, see where we are. Okay, so the word Tet. The word Tet is the symbol of the circle with the X in the middle, and you can turn it however you'd like. So sometimes it's like a plus sign, sometimes it's like an X. You can play with that as the elite do. And it conveys a picture. It conveys a meaning. And that meaning has been debated, but typically it is either accepted that it means to surround, or it means snake, or it implies ownership. That's one of the strongest possibilities in my personal opinion, that it implies ownership, because you have the X in the middle, and the X is a signifier of a mark. You put your mark. You know, when they say put your mark on the paper, the people who didn't know how to spell, they would put an X. The X is the mark, okay? And to put a circle around the X, it basically means that this is contained. It's a contained marker, which implies ownership. Anyway, I think I'm rambling on that particular topic, so let's move forward. So the 12 original Titans, the first generation of Titans, there were a couple of generations of actual Titans, the primordial ones. First, there were 12, and they were Mnemosyne, and I'm going to try my best with the names. Mnemosyne, Tethys, which has the word Tet in it, Thea, Phoebe, Rhea, and Themis. These were all the females. And then, of course, we have Oceanus, Hyperion, Coeus, Kronos, Creus, and Iapetus. Iapetus sounds to me maybe related to Jupiter. But anyhow, we have Mother Gaia, who was the mother of them all, and Father Uranu, or Uranus, however you'd like to pronounce it. Most probable etymology traces to the name Uranu. I'm going to go back to Uranu for just a moment because I found something interesting. It says, this was from Wikipedia, the most probable etymology traces the name Uranu to a Proto-Greek form, which was Warsanos, and enlarged or made bigger from the word orso, also found in Greek, oreo. Now the word oreo, O-U-R-E-O, translates to urinate. It means to pee, basically, because it's also closely related to rain and fog and mist and things like that. So for those of you who are ever eating some Oreos and you wondered, I wonder why it's called Oreos, that's my guess. That's probably why it's called that. Now, that also being said, I just want to throw this out there. Our world is a scavenger world, okay? We picked up all the pieces and tried to make life out of it. What I mean by scavenger is there was an entirely different world that pre-existed ours. It was much like the Avatar world. It was a world of magic and fantasy, and that is why I feel comfortable talking about Titans as a reality, as them actually historically existing. Sorry, I'm just checking the notes here. Oh, the Hecatoncheires were the 100-hand beings and the Cyclops. Now, I'm just going to recap here. Kronos, one of the Titans, castrates Uranu with his hook, the symbol that the elite use as their logo. Zeus destroys Kronos with his lightning bolt and imprisons the others. Now, it's my personal thoughts on this that Kronos was not destroyed. I don't think that Kronos was destroyed. I don't see a lot of evidence for him actually dying. But we'll get into that some other time. So anyhow, Kronos castrates Uranu with his hook. Zeus destroys Kronos with his lightning bolt and imprisons the others. The theme here is that the children rise up against the parents. So let me ask you this question. Who are the children of the gods? Who are the children of the giants? That would be you and me. So what is destined to happen is that humanity is to rise up against the gods themselves in turn. Just how it's been prophesied that the original sons rose up against their fathers and then their sons and so on and so forth. That is a part of our destiny. And this plays into the Godzilla movie, because in the Godzilla movie, they talk about the Titans not as, oh my God, the Titans are here, we need to destroy them. They're talking about the Titans as benefactors of humanity, which, if you think about it, would make sense. If the enemy of my enemy is my friend, that's what they say. Our enemy are the gods. They're the ones who imprisoned us. They're the ones who created this whole slave system that we have today. And so we are destined to rise up against them. So who better to ask for help than the ones that they tried to destroy and imprison, the Titans themselves. Now this movie is starting to make a lot more sense as to why they would see the Titans, these huge monsters that are the size of skyscrapers, as a good thing, because they're there to help humanity. And according to the movie, they've been waiting. They've been just kind of sleeping for quite some time. We're going to get back into that. So the theme is the children rising up against the parents. Now, note, some Titans were on the side of the gods, and some gods were on the side of the Titans. Let's see here. Okay, so before, I'm going to talk about Tartarus. There's a place called Tartarus. It's basically jail for the Titans and the gods. And it's just below our concept of hell. And the reason I want to talk about that is because it's actually mentioned in the Bible, and we're going to get into that. But first, I would like to look at one other thing here. Okay, well, I don't remember what I was going to look into, sorry. So let's just go ahead and look at Tartarus. Okay, so being a biblical scholar, or one who has studied a lot into the Bible, I found it interesting the first time I was in the New Testament, and there was a passage that talked about how God had locked up the angels who rebelled against God and put them in a place called Tartarus. Now, Tartarus in Greek mythology is the exact same place where the Titans and the disobedient gods were placed by Zeus and his family after the war was over, or during the course of the war. He placed them into Tartarus. So we have a direct correlation between what we call angels or angelic beings, and I talked about angels in my Who the Hell Are the L video, and the Titans themselves, the messengers of the gods, if you will. So even in the Bible, it correlates the angels, and there is a correlation between the angels and the Titans. Okay? It's good for us to have an imagination. It's good for us to have creativity. But we also need to ground ourselves with what we have come to know as historical fact and evidence and things like that, to balance the two out, really. So that's Tartarus, and the angels were imprisoned there. Now, another interesting thing about the angels, there's another reference to the angels in the book of Enoch that talks about how the angels were tasked with cutting down the trees. It says that the angels labored at the trees. Why would that be relevant? Unless these were very important trees. Not like us today. Today, we also cut down trees. Isn't that interesting? I mean, think about it. If you have the DNA of the Titans themselves, you naturally would be inclined to act likewise. You would be inclined to follow suit. You don't have to follow suit, keep that in mind, but you are inclined to. So, my whole point with that is that the Titans themselves, there once were gigantic trees that grew all around our realm. The largest of them being the world tree that I mentioned earlier, that exists in the center of our realm, also known as the North Pole. The Titans cut those trees down. The angels cut those trees down. The same type of angels, this is my assumption, that were also thrown into Tartarus, which also correlates to the Titans being locked up in this sub-hell type of a place. Now, this isn't hell. This isn't some sort of a torturous type of a place. It's simply a prison. It's simply a separator. It's simply a place to keep them so that they're out of the way. It's not like, everyone's burning like how we think of hell in our world. There is an inner earth. The earth is, for the most part, hollow. That's where hollow earth theory comes from. And there are many large cavernous areas of the earth, even other lands and places that are completely habitable within our realm. And that's the place where the Titans, after the Titanomachy, where they were banished to. They were basically locked up in this underworld. Now, they didn't die. They're just down there waiting. They don't want to be there. They would like to be released. And It's funny because Zeus actually took out the Cyclops and the 100-handed monsters in order to get their help to fight the Titans. Guess what happened when the war was over? Zeus put them right back into Tartarus, which is sad but kind of funny. Okay, let me check the notes here and we'll move forward a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to read some notable Titans. There are many Titans and they all have lots of stories. I'm just going to go over 3 in particular. And if you'd like to follow along, you can. I'm going to be at this website, www.greek-gods.org. And the first Titan that I'm going to bring up here, and I'm gonna pay more attention to the pictures and stuff, because I would like to explain all of the pictures that you've been seeing as well. So the first Titan I would like to talk about is, well, let's do Kronos, because he is one of the most important ones, because Kronos is the ruler of the world today, believe it or not. Kronos, aka the Horned One, aka Saturn, Satan, the Satyr, the horned god, basically. The Horned One. Okay, so this says Kronos was a Titan god of time and ages, and was above all associated with the destructive force of time, which sooner or later consumes everything. He represented changing time from his status of being the king of the Golden Age, right? He was the king of the Golden Age. He was the ruler. It's interesting because during the Titanomachy, that's such a funny word, but during the 10-year war, Kronos was actually not in charge. Kronos put Atlas in charge of the war because Atlas was more of a war-oriented person or being. But let's keep reading. So he went from the king of the Golden Age to his place of being imprisoned in Tartarus. And according to Hesiod's works and days from Tartarus, being promoted by Zeus to become a king of islands of the Blessed or Elysian Fields somewhere in the underworld. The Elysian Fields is kind of like the pagan version of heaven, basically. Kronos was married to his sister Rhea, with whom they represented eternal flow as they gave birth to a new generation of gods known as the Olympian gods. These are the ones you're probably more familiar with, like Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades, right? Who I would like to also kind of take a look at real quick. Actually, let me go ahead and talk about Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades for just a moment. It's important because remember how I said that Zeus had released the Cyclops and the 100-hand beings? Those beings actually fashioned weapons for Zeus, for Hades, and Poseidon, giving Zeus his thunderbolt weapon, and giving Poseidon his trident, and giving Hades this special helmet. Kind of like in the X-Men, how you see they all have particular things. Magneto has this particular helmet, which keeps the mind readers out of his head. That is an actuality. You can read people's minds energetically, and you can use technology to read people's minds. It's not that difficult when you know how to do it. Thank you, Pamela. Okay, so anyhow, I just wanted to make that note. It is important to know where they got these weapons from. These are not weapons that they themselves fashioned. It is weapons, technology, that was given to them by these other beings that were around at the same time as the Titans who they fought. Okay, so let's move forward here. Okay, actually, I think I've talked about Kronos enough. Let's go ahead and look at another one. I would like to look at the Titan. Oh, by the way, Kronos, remember I said it means horned one, right? The one with the horns. That's also directly related to our word crown. And this is why the elite of the world wear horns on their head in the form and the shape of what we call a crown, a corona, a corn, a horn, if you will. That's why they have this spiky crowns, because they are horns and they are using them symbolically to say that I have now taken the lineage of Kronos, the horned one. I will now follow in his footsteps, essentially. Now let's look at Atlas. I did talk about Atlas in my Who the Hell Are the L video, but we're going to look a little closer at him because he has some really interesting stories. Atlas was known as the Heaven Bearer. Let me get back to the video here so I can see myself. Now, this is really interesting because many of you, I want you to envision Atlas in your mind right now. Think of the god Atlas, wherever you may have seen his likeness, right? Almost always, Atlas is holding up the world, the whole earth, the spinning ball earth that we've been indoctrinated into believing in. It is not said that Atlas held up the world. Atlas does not hold the ground up in space. Atlas holds up the sky and only the sky. Now, of course, if you're holding up the entire earth, then you're holding up the sky as well, but that's not how it was portrayed for thousands of years. Atlas held up the sky and the heavens, and that is all. Had nothing to do with the earth. I just wanted to point that out before we read a little bit more here. Okay, so Atlas was a Titan god of endurance. He was also identified as a god of astronomy because he was the first who instructed mankind in astronomical science, which is basically used for navigation and measuring the seasons. Remember, this is coming from the website. It is said in Library of History by Diodorus Siculus that he surpassed all others by mastering astrology and was the first to discover the spherical nature and therefore being touted as the heaven bearer, something I would disagree with, of course. According to Hesiod, who is a historian, Atlas was one of 4 sons of Iapetus. Iapetus had 4 sons, and basically those 4 sons, they used to be the ones that held up the sky. There were 4 corners to our world, and at those 4 corners, there were 4 titans who were responsible for holding up the sky. Though they were replaced by Atlas. Atlas took the entire sky upon his shoulders. During the War of the Gods, unlike his brothers Prometheus and Epimetheus, Atlas sided with the Titans. So keep this in mind. Remember, I said there were factions. Atlas sided with the Titan race. Prometheus and Epimetheus sided with the giants or the gods. This is important as well. After the war, he was punished by Zeus, who decided not to send him to Tartarus. Think about that. Atlas is not in Tartarus. He's not locked up underground. So we're going to get to where he might be, right? So Zeus decides not to send Atlas to Tartarus together with his relatives, but instead he was sent to the western edge. Keep this in mind. These are instructions for us to follow, if we would like to. Atlas was sent to the western edge of the known world. The known world. To hold access between heavens and earth apart, to keep them apart, to keep them from crashing down onto one another. Now think about that. Just realistically speaking, if a being is holding up the sky to keep it from falling onto the ground, that means that the sky, the heavens that they are talking about, is a physical heavens. It is a physical sky, not the air. You know what I mean? This is not all metaphor and analogy. This is actual when it's talking about this Titan holding up the sky. So he held up the axis between the heavens and the earth, and he kept them apart to prevent the reoccurrence of the primeval union of Gaia and Uranu. Remember? That's how the Titans came. So Zeus did that to make sure that Gaia and Uranu do not have any more Titan children. That's an important part of Zeus's plan. He doesn't want to see the Titans ever again. He doesn't want to have to go through the 10-year battle that he already went through, right? And he has some Titans on his side. Now, there's this account I want to read about Atlas. There is a well-known demigod named Hercules, or Heracles more appropriately, and let me read this story about when Hercules meets Atlas. Okay, basically Hercules is Heracles is tasked with these 12 labors. One of them involves going to Atlas because he needs Atlas's help to retrieve some apples, which these apples are a real thing as well. There are plants, there are fruits out there that essentially work to prolong life. Okay, and many of the gods, they ate these apples, they knew of these fruits, they knew of these special plants, and they kept them to themselves because they did not want humanity to have long life the way that they do, because they're smart and they didn't want to have to deal with another immortal race to who outnumbers them completely. But let me go ahead and read the story. The account with Heracles. As mentioned above, the daughters of Atlas were kidnapped by pirates while they were playing in their garden, and when the pirates stopped to have a meal in their route back to Egypt, Heracles, in one of his last labors, came along. When he was found out by the maidens what had happened, he slew the pirates on sight and brought the ladies back to Atlas. In his gratitude, Atlas helped Heracles in his labor or his task, presumably giving him the apples from his daughter's garden, and also gave him lessons in astrology. However, the mainstream belief is that Atlas was encountered by Heracles, who came to the Titan on the advice of Prometheus in his 11th labor, when he had tried to retrieve the apples of Hesperides. In need of his services, Heracles offered himself as the temporary caretaker. What that means is Hercules was like, man, that must suck, Atlas, having to hold up the whole sky all by yourself. Tell you what, I'm pretty strong. I'll go ahead and take your spot. I'll hold up the sky. If you go get these apples, then we can switch. And Atlas is like, that sounds good to me. That's my version of the story. In return, he asked the Titan to help him with the Golden Apple quest. The garden, controlled by Hera, was tended by Hesperides, the Titan's daughters. Upon return, Atlas tried to convince Heracles to hold the heavens just a little bit longer while he was going to personally deliver the apples himself, which was definitely not the case. Heracles thought of this trickery and asked Atlas to hold the heavens just a couple more moments so that he could reposition his cloak so that he could hold on a little better. The moment that the Titan fell for the trick, he was basically stuck holding up the sky once more. He reclaimed his position, and Heracles took the apples and ran away, with the opportunity to escape. Now, this is the other version I would like to read to you. Released from his burden. According to Fulgentus mythologies and Ovid's Metamorphosis, Atlas, with the heavens on his back, was at some point encountered by Perseus, who was, I believe, Zeus's son, who was on his way back to an island. Perseus kindly asked Atlas for shelter for the night, telling him that he was the son of Zeus. The Titan replied by stating that he was a liar, which angered the hero Perseus, and Perseus then, in revenge, turned Atlas into stone by showing him the head of Medusa and released him from his burden. From that point on, he was known as Mount Atlas. Here's another account of a mountain range being referred to as an ex-being, an ex-Titan. Now, this contradicts the story of Atlas meeting Heracles because Perseus lived in the times before Heracles, and therefore Hercules could not have met Atlas and asked him for his help if he was already turned into a mountain. But I did want to point that particular story out because this gets into mud fossil theory, and I'll tell you guys more about mud fossil theory here towards the end. But let me go ahead and we're going to go over one more Titan. I would like to go over Prometheus. Prometheus is a very important Titan in our day and age because the elite of the world essentially also worship Prometheus. And there's reason for that. So let me go ahead and pull up, let's see, Prometheus' story here. Like I said, there are a lot of them, and they all have very, very interesting stories. This is called mythology, but when you're looking to find out the truth, the grains of truth, the breadcrumbs that are hidden in these stories, it's wise to use a technique known as comparative mythology. So we compare all of the stories, and we see what familiar concepts repeat themselves, basically giving more evidence to their validity. Here is Prometheus, the champion of mankind. As I tell you the story of Prometheus, please keep in mind other references that may be a little more veiled. For example, Maui in the Disney movie Moana, right? Maui is a type of Prometheus. Prometheus was a Titan god of forethought. He was known as the father and champion of mankind because he had a special bond with his creation, teaching and helping them to progress in their life. Well, let's stop right there. Now, according to the creation of mankind, there are many examples in various myths, religions, legends, as to how mankind was created, how they came about. What they all agree on is that two main things. One, mankind did not simply spring from the earth in the way that the Titans did. Mankind was created by the gods, or by the Titans, or by the giants. They all agree on this. Mankind was fashioned and formed and created. The other thing that they agree on is what mankind was made out of, which is also very interesting to myself, being a mud fossil researcher. All of these stories include mankind being created from the earth, from clay, from rock, whatever it may be. We're going to get back into why I think that's important and how it connects us with the Titans. Some of you may already know where I'm going with that. But let's continue reading. The champion of mankind, Prometheus. During the history, Prometheus became a symbol of striving towards the scientific knowledge and the risk of unintended consequence, which could also result in tragedy. He was the son of Iapetus and Clemen, or Asia. One moment, I'm just reading. Prometheus had three brothers, Atlas, who we just went over, Epimetheus, and variously Menoetius, and was a part of the Titan family. But when certain events were set in motion and the rebellion against Kronos started, his intelligence and foresight enabled him to see the future, and therefore he convinced his brother Epimetheus for them to side with the Olympians during the war. And because of it, they were spared from being imprisoned in Tartarus alongside the other Titans. So here's another Titan that is not locked away in some sort of a titanic prison in the world below hell. We have Prometheus, we have Atlas. There are others as well. And remember, we're going to get into where they might be located, right? And how this all ties into Godzilla and the movie Godzilla. So, let's see. Becoming champion of mankind. Let me read this. According to various authors, Prometheus is credited as the champion of mankind. He is said to have created them with a mixture of water and clay. But according to Plato's Protagoras, the gods had created them from water and clay, and Prometheus and Epimetheus were only tasked to equip them with proper traits. So there are some conflicts as to the origin of man when it comes to Prometheus. Some say Prometheus created mankind, but others say that it was the other gods or giants or titans that created mankind, and Prometheus was simply tasked with giving mankind particular attributes, as was his brother. So let's continue reading about the story. According to popular belief, in which the brothers were tasked to create animals and mankind, Prometheus is said to be a true mastermind and craftsman, as he started shaping men out of water and earth. Once he completed perfect figures in the image of the gods, he was only left to equip them with appropriate attributes to cover the skin, and gave them the ability to defend or to avoid. Fight or flight, right? However, Prometheus was left without options. Due to his brother's lack of foresight, his brother used all of the attributes on the animals. When Prometheus came to inspect the animals, he found out that the animals were richly fashioned with fur, claws, wings, and all of the other attributes. He also found out that nothing was left for mankind to cover them and to give them something to protect themselves. He was really mad at his brother for using all of the attributes on the animals, and the day of bringing his figurines to life was approaching. As described in Plato's Protagoras, he was anxious, and he stole Hephaestus and Athena's wisdom in the arts, and he gave that to mankind along with fire, which was previously banned from mankind by Zeus. And this enabled them to preserve their kind and make progress in evolution. It is also said that Prometheus fancied mankind, and according to somebody who wrote something, sorry, I can't pronounce that, and I don't want to waste time right now. He taught mankind how to keep fire alive when they first got it from the gods. He also taught mankind how to predict the future from their dreams, how to make remedies from the plants, how to live and to share with each other, and also instructed them into occult art, among many other things. Men really appreciated the contribution of Prometheus and hailed him as their champion. Now, I want to compare this with the Book of Enoch. In the Book of Enoch, we have the story of the fallen angels, which were the original 19, there were more than that, but there were 19 leaders, which, by the way, you will also see the number 19 pop up quite often. But there were this original 19 leaders of the angelic race in the Book of Enoch. In the Book of Enoch, and in some other books, it describes the satanic figure, the enemy, right? Well, whose enemy? That's really honestly my question for all of you. Think about this. Let's not just be what do you call it when you just follow a team that's winning? You know what I mean? A front runner, I think. I try not to be a front runner, okay, when it comes to these things, but to really take my time digesting them to see where I stand on their issues, because it's not really where I stand with the beings because I like the name Nike, or I like the name Prometheus, or I like the name Zeus or Kronos, or whatever it may be, but it really boils down to where do we stand on their issues. Clearly, I would like to see myself preserved and my life preserved, so I'm more inclined to side with those gods who are not out to destroy me. That's just one example. However, let me get back to this. Okay, so anyhow, these other tales of the fallen angels or the gods or the titans or whatnot, the tales of them, it's usually described that they had given mankind, they taught them secret knowledge and the esoteric and things like witchcraft and magic and numbers and numerology and astrology and all of these various things, and it is looked at typically as a bad thing. Now, I'm not going to take sides. I'm not going to say whether or not it is a bad thing, but this is where the story comes from. Now, I would like to read what had happened to Prometheus. Prometheus brought this fire to mankind. It was not actual physical fire, okay? Mankind, I'm sure, would eventually learn how to make fire, okay? Lightning strikes, something catches on fire. It happens, okay? It's not something, fire itself is not that important that Zeus would be like, keep fire away from the humans, fire is too important for them. No, it's not talking about fire. It's talking about light, okay? Light and fire are usually synonymous in many of the older languages. And that light is symbolic of wisdom, of knowledge that is practically applied and useful. It is wisdom that was given to mankind, not a physical fire that burns things. I really don't think that Zeus cares too much about that. That's my opinion. Okay, so the punishment. What was the punishment for Prometheus for stealing the fire, right? Now, Prometheus pissed off Zeus. He really got under Zeus's skin because Zeus was in charge. Zeus is the hero. He's the champion. He's the one that killed Kronos and brought him down. So he took his spot on the throne, so to speak. Zeus had issued a proclamation that mankind was not to inherit this thing that is referred to as fire. So this was a pretty serious offense. Zeus felt betrayed by the act of stealing the godly fire and ordered Prometheus to be chained on the rock of Caucasus for eternity. Now, I want to stop right there just for a moment. Think about this. Usually you will see this depicted in paintings and things like that, where Prometheus is chained to some sort of a rock, and basically what happens is he has a bird pecking at his liver. But Prometheus is a titan. Titans are gigantic. Titans are enormous, okay? So this was not some boulder that he was tied to, okay? Here we have another correlation between the Titans and the mountains themselves, okay? But let me continue on. According to Hyginus, for 3,000 years, where each day an eagle was sent to feed upon Prometheus's regenerating evergreen liver. Now, let's stop right there just for a moment. What are the implications of this? Prometheus is basically on a mountain, bound to the mountain, and he has a liver that regrows all of the time. Okay? That doesn't mean... What this implies is that he truly is immortal, that he cannot die, that it is very difficult to kill, in the traditional sense, the Titans themselves. They are immortal, and they are probably a lot different than mankind is today. We have fallen far from the trees, so to speak, okay? Because if an eagle was to peck out my liver every day, I would die, okay? Prometheus does not die. He is an immortal. These beings are very, very hard to kill, which is why instead of killing them, they were all locked up. They were all put away, right? You can't kill an immortal. But let's continue on with the story. However, Zeus was not satisfied with this punishment and ordered Hephaestus to create Pandora, which happens to be the name of the place in Avatar of that euphoric, prehistoric world that actually once existed. When Pandora was created, and Pandora, just for fun, let's go ahead and break that word down. It's Pan, which is another word for Kronos, the horned one, the music player, right? The one who's in control of the vibrations and the frequencies, our energetic frequencies, things like that. Also the Pied Piper, this is kind of where that story comes from. Pan is the exact same word for the satyr of Satan, of Saturn, of Kronos, okay? That is Pan. So we have Pan and we have Dora, which I believe translates into a door, some sort of an opening, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. But when Pandora was created and filled with gifts from the gods, Zeus planted her as a gift to his brother Epimetheus in order for them to unleash the punishment to mankind. Epimetheus, despite his brother's warning never to accept gifts from Zeus, fell for the trap and married her. For the wedding present, Zeus gave them a box. Now, the box is also one of these symbols that the elite use, right? They are keeping us in a box. We are literally living in boxes. Jack in the box is a clown that has been put into the box, and the clown represents the pasty-looking giant gods of old. Pardon me. So it's a joke, basically. It's sort of rubbing it in their faces. We've got you. We've put you into the box, okay? That's why I say think outside of the box, right? So anyways, let's keep going forward here. As mentioned above, Prometheus was punished and being chained to the Caucasus Mountains, basically, for eternity, having only one friend to talk to, and it was the eagle who came daily to feed upon his liver. Prometheus kind of gave in so that at least he could have someone to talk to. But the habit of Prometheus and the eagle was disrupted when Hercules came to the Caucasus in one of his labors when he needed information about the location of the Garden of Hesperides, which we already talked about. They agreed to exchange services, and Heracles was supposed to free Prometheus after the Titan would tell him the location of the garden. Heracles then shot the giant eagle with his Hydra poisonous arrow, and he released Prometheus as promised. Grateful, Prometheus, finally released out of the torment, advised Heracles that the best chances of getting the apples of Hesperides is to send him to his brother Atlas, which is where we already went over that story. So, let's see. Do I want to read this? Yeah, why not? I'll read this. Prophecies of Prometheus. When Prometheus was released from the Caucasus, Zeus made peace with him and gave him a ring made of the chains that he had to remind him that he should never trick Zeus again. Prometheus then, in exchange, warned Zeus and Poseidon about the future, when these two gods pursued Thetis, the beautiful sea goddess. Prometheus claimed that the child will hold a destiny to be more powerful than his father. Consequently, the gods withdrew from the pursuit, and Zeus made Thetis to be married with a mortal. Prometheus later found himself a bride, an Oceanid of Mount Parnassus called Proneia. Together they had a son, Deucalion. This is why I wanted to read this. Deucalion is one of the many names that was given to the Noah figure from the Bible, the one who survived the floods, the human who survived the floods. Deucalion had been warned by the prophecy of his father about the great flood, and therefore he built a chest, provisioned it, and together with Pyrea, the daughter of Epimetheus and Pandora, they sailed to Mount Parnassus because it was supposed to be one of the safest places from the flood. After the event, they were instructed at the Oracle of Delphi to repopulate the world and throwing bones of their mother behind their shoulders. They understood bones to be rocks and mother to be Gaia. So they started throwing rocks behind their shoulders, and that's how they started shaping mankind again. Rocks thrown by Pyra became women, and rocks thrown by Deucalion became men. Isn't that very interesting? Here's another reference to life coming from rocks. We're going to get to that, I promise. So let me go ahead and close that out. I would like to start commenting on some of these pictures as well. I'm really eager. I spent a lot of time putting all of this together, so I really appreciate an audience. I'm glad that you guys are listening. I'm glad you guys are here. So let me get back to my notes here, and we're a little more than halfway done. Okay, so let me sum up for some people who, if you are just joining us, we are talking about the Titans, and it's not like we're talking about fiction. I'm not talking about Dungeons and Dragons. This isn't a game. I am dead serious when I talk about the reality of the titanic beings the size of skyscrapers. Much like Godzilla, they may not have looked exactly like Godzilla, but isn't that what we do? Don't we just cartoonify everything? The longer the time is that it's been since that has been a reality for us, the more cartoonified that reality starts to become. It turns into what we call myths and legends, which is truth told in story form. Titans exist. Titans did exist and pre-existed humanity. They are an integral part of our history. And that's what we're talking about today. Now, here's some questions that I have for all of you to just ponder on your own. Think about what it means to be a Titan, right? Many people have asked me, because a lot of times when we try to envision titanic beings walking around, we project our way of life onto them, which is not right, and it's not helpful in trying to recreate the origins of where we come from. If anything, we have twisted the original reality. This, by the way, over here is Paul Bunyan. Paul Bunyan is a cartoonified version of the Titans, and that's where we get that from. It's said that Paul Bunyan created the Grand Canyon by dragging his axe as him and his giant ox walked off. That's why I'm going to the Grand Canyon, by the way. So here's my question for you. Well, actually, let me preface my question with a story, right? Many small insects, for example, a fly, a common housefly, only live for a few days, which means that their concept of time is accelerated. A fly experiences time much faster than a human being. So if I leave my house to go run some errands, right, and there is a fly on the wall right next to the door, that fly would have seen me leave, and then all of this time in the life of the fly would have elapsed. And in fly years, that fly would have seen me return. When I return, I have not really aged. I have not changed. As a matter of fact, I'm wearing the exact same things that I wore when I left. But in the fly's lifespan, this is all told in a much different way. If the fly were to tell the story to his children, It would be something like, I saw one of those giants and he left and he didn't come back for years and years and years. And one day the Titan came back and he had not changed at all. And my point here is that time may be experienced differently by the Titans than it is for us. Now, this is going to be really important when we start to try to break down and understand the timing of the Titans. What is their timing? I'll give you an example. In the Bible, there is an interesting verse that says, to the Lord, or to God, 1,000 years is as one day, and one day is as 1,000 years. And I broke that down in one of my older videos, basically. But it very well may be that Titans experience time differently than we do. That for them, time is going by much slower. And perhaps that's the reason why when you see something that's gigantic in movies, it's often portrayed as moving really slowly. You know, they always portray the Titans as moving very slowly. However, to a titanic and massive being, they're not moving slowly. They're moving at a normal rate of speed. If they were to try to catch, let's say that the Titans return and there's an F-18, like a fly, just buzzing around them, right? To the F-18, the Titan might try to slap it out of the air, but it's moving very slowly. The Titan is just thinking, man, the F-18, the fly, is really quick. I have to really speed myself up to really catch this thing, So it's interesting to think about the concept of time as it is experienced by different beings. For example, dog years, right? Many of you are familiar with this. Dog years are like 7 years to 1 human year. That means that they experience time a lot different. And this probably accounts for a lot of our immaturity as a race, as a species of humanity. We are very immature. Why? Because we're in a hurry. Why are we in a hurry? We don't have that long to live. Less than 100 years? That's ridiculous. That's not that much time. That's barely enough time to do much of anything at all. And it was planned to be that way. It was supposed to be that way. But I digress. It very well may be that our governments of the world, that the rulers of the world, the quote-unquote Illuminati, have been mining, they have been searching, and they have been looking for the DNA of the Titans themselves. Surviving DNA. DNA intact enough for them to recreate or to manipulate it in the way that they are very good at. After all, they did create us. They are master geneticists. So this is why I mentioned Jurassic Park in the beginning. That entire movie is a metaphor for reality, not the fake reality that's been handed to us in our school system about dinosaurs and stegosauruses and the kingdom of no. There is an esoteric story to be found, which is that they know there is DNA in the rock. Why is there DNA in the rock? Now, I'm not saying there's DNA in all rock, so bear with me. Much of the ancient world was turned into stone. For more information on this, check out my video called The Stone Age. Okay? It's the age of stone, the age of rock. Now, remember, we had said that Kronos lived during the Golden Age. He was the god of gold. He was the master of the age of gold. So how do we go from an age of gold immediately to an age of pretty much rock, the Stone Age? It's because everything that we look around, we see a world full of rocks, boulders, earth, in interesting and often indescribable shapes that we can't account for. We would say, oh, it's weathering, it's wind and rain over millions and millions of years. Just imagine how it would shape itself like that. I don't buy that anymore. I don't. We have strange rock formations all around our world because the ancient world itself had become petrified. It had turned into what is known today, tentatively, as mud fossils. They are fossilized relics from a forgotten time. So, that being the case, and it's everything that turned into mud fossils. Everything turned into rock. So technology turned into rock, petrified. Organic life turned into rock and petrified. And there were survivors, of course. But those things that petrified still kept the DNA within it. Okay? And I would imagine that the DNA breaks up over time. So I would imagine that there is this rush for the people who are in charge of us to locate the DNA, the gold diggers of the world, right? They're trying to get the gold of Kronos. They're trying to get the DNA of the Titans, at least those Titans who sided with them, or perhaps they could raise up their own Titan to fight for them, which is also another concept in many of these movies, right? I believe that our governments are trying to discover or rediscover the genes of the giants and the Titans themselves. I also have a few other theories as to them working with the Titans as well. But let me check my notes and make sure. We're towards the end of our video today, but I just want to check my notes here. Okay, so we talked about time, experiencing time. Bard's Magic. I thought you already subscribed. Well, you resubscribed. I like that. Well, it's nice to have you. And I also want to just say for a moment, feel free to go over to the chat. The chat is recorded, and I have the best viewers. I really do. You guys are amazing, and you're all so helpful and informative and considerate of one another. I really appreciate it. So let me get on to this. The government is searching for surviving DNA of the giants and Titans. So here's the question. If the giants existed, which they did, where are they? I mean, where did they go, right? Well, we know part of the answer. Part of the answer is many of them were locked away because they can't be killed. Or it's very difficult to destroy them. We'll say that. And if anything, quite often, the further back in time you go to these primordial Titans, one of the dangers of killing the Titans is that whatever it is comprised of has the ability to recreate, okay? It's kind of like the Hydra. When you cut off one head, 2 more heads grow back. So you have to be very careful in dealing with these immortal beings. So it was decided by Zeus, and understandably so, to simply lock them away, keep them confined so that we are all safe, we know where they are, and they can't move. That's a much better idea than trying to kill an immortal. What happened to them? Well, some of them are locked away underground, beneath your feet. This is where you get the concept of hell, of, the bad guys being locked away in some sort of dungeon and tortured forever, etc. That's where that cartoonified story comes from. There are Titans in the earth and other beings that live there, that have made a home there, okay? But it's implied they don't want to be there. They would much rather be on the surface, up here, where they're free, essentially. So that place is called Tartarus. And like I said, it's an interesting Bible passage that mentions Tartarus as well. But my question is, we already learned Atlas was basically turned into a mountain range, okay? So Atlas is not inside of the earth. Prometheus was released, right? And we aren't 100% sure if Kronos was entirely destroyed. So where are these Titans? Well, some of them were turned into stone. That's one way you can kill a Titan. Although I'm not 100% sure that means that they are dead. Like I said, we cannot project our concepts onto an ancient, mythical, magical, primordial race of beings that we have breadcrumbs that have just barely reached us today. Let's not make the mistake of projecting our concepts of life and death onto them, right? So some were turned into mud fossils, rock. Some actually turned into stone. Some were placed into Tartarus, into the inner earth areas, and sealed off. Obviously, it has to be sealed off so that they can't escape, right? Now, Another theory that I have, because I am a flat earther and I believe that we have a plane of existence that we live on. If you don't believe that, it's okay. You can still apply many of these truths to your paradigm. But in this plane of existence, there is an ice wall that surrounds our world, just like in the television show Game of Thrones, okay? In the television show Game of Thrones, they have an ice wall. And guess what? Beyond the ice wall exists all of these. There's giants, there's magic, dragons, all of it. And I believe that that is one of the realities that has been cartoonified and then represented to us. It is our truth that is handed back to us as entertainment. So, that's my most likely place where I believe that the Titans are. I believe that there are Titans and gods on the other side of our boundary to our world. We have a peripheral boundary that goes around. We have boundaries above and boundaries below. Okay? It doesn't mean that they cannot be accepted. It doesn't mean that we can't cross over those boundaries, which crossing over the boundary is also an interesting etymological topic for you to research if you'd like to. Anyhow, I won't get into that right now. But I believe that on the other side of this ice wall is Jotunheim, or is the land of the giants, the frost giants, typically, right? So we have the Titans who are in the earth, typically personified as being part of the earth, made of the earth, or sometimes lava or fire or things like that. We have Titans portrayed as being turned into rock. We also have frost giants. We have Titans and giants that live in the coldest areas that there are, and they're able to withstand these extreme temperatures. I believe that that is due to their chemical makeup. So here's an example of the Tet. Remember how I started this at the beginning? The circle with the X in the middle, that is the letter Tet. That is the number 9. And it literally means, one of the meanings of Tet is to surround. So those who surround us are the Tet-on, the Titan, the Titan race, right? Those who surround us, the surroundings, that's the Tet. You can see King Tut, Tet, right? Right here, we call him Tut, King Tut, doing the skull and crossbones, right? This is, the cross is the Tet, and of course you've got the skull as well, which is, you know, the secret societies use that as well. But I won't look into those pictures quite yet. I want to talk about Ragnarok. Some people might be familiar with Ragnarok, thanks in part to Thor, the movie, right? We like to see movies, even if we don't study. It's amazing how much you can learn from just going to the movies. If you go there and you don't allow your brain wave patterns to change into different states, alpha and theta, or other states, right? If you can go in there and keep a critical mind, and some people have an ability, a meditative state, to do both at the same time, believe it or not. But whenever I go to the movies, I'm often very analytical, and I'm like, wow, I'm looking for the reality that's presented back to me. Ragnarok and Thor Ragnarok is one of those, you know. Attack on Titan is a movie that's coming out based on the anime cartoon. Also, you see the wall right there. The Titan is right behind the wall. There is this concept of the Titans being stuck behind this barrier, wanting to come in, okay? That's where Thor and Ragnarok come into play. In Norse mythology and Ragnarok, the Titans will return. The gods will return. You probably saw the little animated clip of Surtur in Thor Ragnarok, and he comes and he destroys the world by fire, which is how it is prophesied that this age will end. It will be an age of fire. Will it be nuclear war? I don't really feel nuclear war. It doesn't resonate with me. I know supposedly we have these things called nuclear bombs, but that doesn't seem, that doesn't resonate with me. Oh, by the way, I want to talk about this guy real quick. That is the Colossus of Rhodes. The Colossus of Rhodes, Colossus just means titanic. It means terrible. It means great. It means gigantic. all of those things, it is a titan, okay? And it is said that there was this statue that guarded the city of Rhodes. Well, I would like to offer this. Based on what we've learned so far, is it a possibility that the Colossus of Rhodes was not a statue at all? As a matter of fact, there is much debate on whether or not it would even have been possible to build the Colossus of Rhodes out of the various metals that they say it was built out of. I will tell you this, during my research, I found some articles by reputable news sources and newspapers that talked about, I think it was in the early 90s, I want to say, some people had found a piece of the Colossus of Rhodes. They had found a stone fist in the waters. So the government of Rhodes, or Crete, or wherever it is, the government shut down the harbor completely so that they could go and get the other pieces to the Colossus of Rhodes. Well, when that was enacted, all of a sudden it was passed down from higher up, stop everything. That's just a rock. It's just a rock. It happens to look like the fist of someone's left hand. And they told them to stop the operation. Don't go look for it. Don't do it. Leave it where it is. So it's my theory that the Colossus of Rhodes was a titan who was petrified. And that's where that comes from. And ultimately, broke apart and fell down or whatnot. Let's see here. Oh, Ragnarok. That's what we were talking about. I'm so sorry. Okay, so Ragnarok is when all of the gods return. Gods, giants, angels, demons, vampires, whatever people would like to call them, the gods will come back. Every culture agrees on this. Every history agrees on this. All of the myths, all of the legends, they all talk about the time of the gods, the beginnings, our origins. They talk about the time. Well, not as many of them talk about the time when the gods left, okay? But many of them didn't leave, okay? Many of them escaped, okay? Because the rest of them were turned into stone, basically, is my theory. Or the theory that I adhere to right now. Ragnarok is the time of the end. It is the apocalypse. It is the unveiling. It is revelation. It is the time in which you will see things that will astound you. Magic itself will re-enter our world, and the fantastic will manifest suddenly. So suddenly that many people across the realm will have heart attacks and die from fear. They will be so afraid. Let me tell you why. Pardon me. Let me tell you why. It is because we have taken it all for granted. Everything, our entire world, we have taken for granted. We have become fat and lazy and slaves, essentially. All of us have become slaves. We have become slaves that have been conditioned and reworked and edited and influenced by those who would like to control us. One of the things they have done is erased and deleted and suppressed our own history, okay? But it's not gone. That's why I do this. That's why I do these podcasts or YouTube or whatever it may be. I share these things to be and serve as a reminder. These are things, this is not something I'm bringing to light. This is something you already know. You know this. These are truths that resonate with many of you. It's just that nothing has triggered it to come from the back of the mind to the forefront of the mind. And this is my hopes and something that I would like to encourage. And that's why we're talking about this today. But the gods will all return. The jinn, the demon, the giants, the monsters, Godzilla, Mothra, Rodan, those are all names of characters who have been cartoonified, who represent the reality. The reality is monsters do exist. Okay? Star. Mon means man or humanoid. Star is symbolic of the angels or the beings from the stars or the gods or whatnot. They are monstars. So anyhow, let me check my notes here, see what else I've got. Oh, just some Oh, let me know in the chat. I'm so sorry. I need to ask the chat a question. In the introduction, did you see the video playing of Alexander, young Alexander? Because if not, I would like to use that. Someone in the chat says they need to use headphones to hear me. Can you guys hear me okay? Is this better? I turned up the volume. Let me know in the chat if on a scale of 1 to 100, how's the volume doing? I want to make sure it's good for everyone. Okay, so everyone's saying that the volume's good. That's great. Thank you for your help, everyone. Let me get back to my notes real quick. We were talking about Ragnarok. I have some breadcrumbs. Oh, I wanted to know if I showed you guys the clip from Alexander where he's talking about Zeus mixing in the DNA with the Titans into humanity, because that's actually what I'm going to talk about next. Okay, well, I'm going to keep my eye on the chat and I'm going to look for the answer. But basically, this is what was said in the movie, and I find it to be very interesting that they edited out that particular part of the movie, even though it really added to the story, because quite honestly, the movie Alexander sucked. It was just a horrible movie. It had a few breadcrumbs here and there, but it was a little too raw, a little too base for my tastes. But I loved that they had that particular breadcrumb in the movie, and they had kept it out of the movie. Dana says it's always best to talk louder and the listener can turn it down. Okay, so that's good to know. I'll keep that in mind. I'm actually going to talk about podcasts a little towards the end, right before we roll the credits. And I'll jump in the chat here for a minute too, but not right now. I just want to finish up things. Okay, so here's my point with all of this, okay? We are related, directly related to the gods, to the beings that we have named gods, okay? Now, if you're new to my channel, bear with me because I break down the word God, I break down what is a god, and yes, I do believe in an all-encompassing energy that connects us all, but that's not what I'm talking about when I talk about the Titans, the giants, the gods, any of those. We are related. This is where the coding comes from, okay? I would imagine, this is me guessing at this, but I would imagine that when the giants themselves, the god race, created mankind, it would have been much easier to create with something that was already there. The framework was already there in the genetics of the Titans and in their very own genetics, which may be and explain why we have different races, why we have different types of humanoids, because different types of humanoids have different strands of originating DNA that comes from gods or giants or titans or whatnot. And this, for me, helps to explain some things like the cyclops, the round eye, right? I have a round eye. Some people, usually in the Pacific Island or the Pacific Rim, right? The people of the Pacific Rim, for the most part, usually attribute their creation to the dragon race, to the gods themselves. And they all share certain traits, like their eyes and how their eyes look really cool like that. I don't have that trait, and there are reasons why. It's not because there are so many horrible examples of people trying to justify this, okay? Whether it be the differences between black people and Caucasians or Asians, and you know what I mean? Like, the thing that I am explaining, the origins of mankind, help to alleviate any racism whatsoever, because we acquire knowledge. We learn these things, and so we don't fear them. We don't fear the differences that one another has. We respect and honor those differences that we have. Well, we would like to. I would like to. Okay. So we talked about Ragnarok. We talked about, there's Teen Titans, of course. I've never watched Teen Titans, but I've heard of it. And interestingly enough, Teen Titans are basically little kid superheroes. The superheroes are directly related to the giants and the titans, those super beings that once existed. We have cartoonified them. This is right here. This is a Calypso, okay? This is a clip from Pirates of the Caribbean. This woman is tied up to a ship. She is a titan. She is a giant in this particular scene. And I see stuff like that all over the place. I don't see dead people. I see titans and giants and elves and all kinds of crazy stuff. Of course, we have Attack on Titan. I would be remiss if I did not mention Attack on Titan. There are so many breadcrumbs, and I'm going to tell you right now, I have not watched one full episode of the TV show Attack on Titan. I'm not really a big anime fan, you know, but I have used that television show in my research, and there are a lot of breadcrumbs. This is Ultraman. This is from my childhood. This was before. What was that really famous one with the karate people that wore different colors? Power Rangers or whatever. Anyhow, this is clearly Spider-Man. That guy is made out of sand or dirt. He's the Sandman, etc. Let's see what else. Oh, this is really interesting. I'm gonna talk about Attack on Titan, so please spoiler alert, because I'm gonna talk about some of the most recent revelations. But in Attack on Titan, the Titans come from humans. Now think about that, because that could be something that could blow your mind, right? The Titans originally came from humanity. It's this circle. It's very interesting to me how everything kind of repeats itself. Let's see what else. Okay, so now what I would like to do is I'd like to jump into the chat and also comment, not commentate, but comment on the pictures on my slideshow. I put together this slideshow. I'm right now, the software program that I'm using does not enable me to manually go over slide to slide. It's just on automatic. But I'm gonna reference a lot of these pictures here. While I do that, let's see. I wanted to let you guys know, hang out at the end. I did spend many hours making a special credits section for my patrons. I also have news. I'm going to be doing a podcast. It's going to be a video podcast. Okay, so it'll be much like the format you see here, without a lot of the pictures and stuff, because just to be quite honest with many of you, to do the video side of this, it's time consuming, just to be quite honest. And honestly, this is going to be my last video for a good month. I'm going to be taking some time off to reset myself and to also incorporate doing a podcast. When I have my podcast done, you will be able to listen to it when you're exercising, when you're driving, out and about, and you don't have to worry about taking up all the extra data that comes with watching a YouTube video. So that's the plus side of those things. That's something that I'm currently working on. And if any of you have any advice for me, or you know how to start a podcast and you know all of the steps, I could use your help. So I need podcasting for dummies, basically. But I am researching it, and it is something I'm planning on doing. Here is one of the posters for Rogue One, a Star Wars movie. It says Jeddah. That's the name of that planet, is Jeddah, which is basically Jedi. This one, and you saw the mud fossil there, this one is from, I totally forgot the name of the movie. Somebody let me know. Kong, of course, right? So we've got Kong. Kong is an anthropomorphized Titan. He's a Titan who has been cartoonified into a monkey, okay? Many of these Titans, because they are primordial beings, we characterize, we give them caricatures. We draw caricatures of them. They are cartoons. They are creative representations of the original source, okay? And that's just a lumberjack, because the Titans were said to have chopped down the massive, huge trees that once existed in our realm. Those trees that have been chopped down also petrified. The stumps of those trees petrified and became what we call mesas or tabletops or things of that nature. Not all of them, please keep this in mind. Sometimes there are always anomalies. There are always exceptions, okay? But for the most part, it's pretty simple. A child can look at a mesa and say, oh, it's a giant tree stump, you know? It looks like one. There's no good reason that mainstream science has told me as to the existence of mesas. Rain over any amount of time does not cause something to become a flat surface, okay? It may smooth it out, it may make more of a pyramidal type shape or whatnot, but not a tabletop, not a flat surface, and not one that sort of extends into like a tree stump. You know what I mean? And this is how the gods were portrayed. I know it's a crappy picture, and I'm sorry about that. But this is how the gods were portrayed, as giants, because they actually were giants. This is the clip from the movie Ragnarok that I was telling you about. That's Surtur, and that is the Titan that returns in the end in order to destroy the world by fire. This is the movie, The Titan. Now, look at the skin there. They did these things purposefully because they represent a truth. It's the skin color, it's the skin tone, and it's the substance, the sort of scaly skin. Now, look at his fingers right there. I want to point this out. And by the way, I may, if I get enough patrons, I may end up doing another channel where I do esoteric movie reviews, because I think that'd be fun. But in the movie The Titan, his two middle fingers are sort of turned into one, right? So when he puts his hand up, he does this all the time. What this is it's a hand sign of the triple Vav, or triple V, if you will. V, and then there's another V, and then there's another V right here. It's 3 V's, and the V is the Vav, which is equal to the number 6, just like the letter Tet, or Thet, or Theta, if you're Greek, is the number 9, right? Which corresponds to the Titans. And this is just, some examples of Titans. Of course, they're cartoonified. I very much doubt that they looked exactly like this, or, that they were all Caucasian looking or whatnot. But it's really interesting, especially how they're talked about in their colors. Oftentimes, these giants are depicted as being green, like the Jolly Green Giant. And I believe that we did not have the sun and the moon that we have today. I believe there were altogether different light sources. For more information on that, I highly recommend looking into Immanuel Velikovsky's works. You could probably look up any of his works, really, because the man is brilliant, in my opinion. But Velikovsky puts forth the idea that what we call planets, the Titans, were one time much closer to our realm, and therefore they acted as lights, not stars, but lights in the sky. The dominant one being the one we call Saturn, named after the Titan who ruled during that age. Okay, not vice versa, but the planet is named after the reality. We honored the reality by naming the star or the planet after him, right? The light in the sky, the heavenly luminaries. That, what was that clip from? I think that clip was from, what was it called? Cloverfield, right? I want to jump in the chat. We had about 200 people watching tonight, and I've been talking for almost 2 hours, which actually surprises me, because I intended this to be a shorter video. But aside from that, let me see who's here. And I know that there are people watching who don't have access to the chat. I keep you all in mind. I just want to let you know that. I keep every single one of you in mind. And it is my pleasure for this to be something that I do for a living, something that I dedicate most of my time to when I'm not with my family, is sharing this information with all of you. Let's see, participants. Wow, there are a lot of people in the chat. We've got Steven, Spongetacular, Rulane, of course, Paranormal White Noise, Riem, No Voter ID, Nacian, Moose Buzz, Mr. Mensa, Miss Doll D, Love Blanquita, Lori, Joseph, Jane, myself, James, hello, testing 1, 2, 3, Girl on Fire, Fawn Marie, hey Fawn, Dana Anderson, Calvin, good to see you, Calvin. Let me go ahead and I need to make Calvin one of my moderators real quick. Where is Calvin? Oh, by the way, if you have a question, I would like to do a quick question and answer session. So I will take the next 5 questions, okay, that are relevant to what we're talking about. Or comments, whatever you would like. Just go ahead and type in @JayDreamerZ. That way I can see it. Let me see if I can find Calvin in the meantime. There we are. Boom. Okay, cool. Okay, so we're going to do a quick questions and answers. Then we're going to go ahead and roll the credits, which I am proud of. I mean, it's nothing spectacular, you know, but man, it takes a lot of time. I do want to just sort of repeat to everyone, this will be my last live stream for at least a good month. I'll be celebrating my birthday next month in the Grand Canyon, doing an on-location video. That's why I really appreciate any contributions that are made in between now and then, because it honestly helps out a whole lot. And I'll be doing an extensive video on the Grand Canyon, Meteor Crater, and the Petrified Forest. Hopefully being able to get some interviews as well. I would like to do some interviews. Interesting Attack on Titan comes out September 7th. Like I said, my birthday is next month. So, and of course, Jack the Giant Slayer. Let's jump back into the chat room, and I'm going to answer the next 5 questions. Free Thought EMF says, JayDreamerZ, how's your book going? My book is going awesome. It's very disorganized right now. I'm just going to be honest with you. There's a lot of information just pumped into the computer, and it doesn't look like a book right now. It just looks like all kinds of various ideas in like a huge brainstorm right now. Basically, it's not separated by chapters quite yet, but it's going well. Thanks for asking. Let's see here. Who else? Sven Dobbs says, JayDreamerZ, thoughts on the 900-mile long dragon and 300-mile long Leviathan at the top of Morocco? Honestly, I believe Mud Fossil University first discovered that or whatnot. I'm not entirely convinced. I'm not 100% sure that those are dragons or whatnot. According to my research, what I have found thus far is that most of the Titans were basically at their largest the size of a mountain, as tall as a mountain. So 300 miles is pretty big, but I'm not discounting it whatsoever. I just haven't looked into it. So that's probably my honest answer, is I haven't looked into that. The biggest Titan that I know of, the largest sentient being that I know of, is Gaia, which is our world, which is the earth that we are standing on. Everything is alive. Everything is alive. There is no death. Everything is just a constant transfer from life to life. That's all it is. Trees are alive. The air is alive. There is life connecting me and yourselves right now. And the more that we adapt this type of mindset and this acceptance and resonance with life all around us, the more peace comes into our life. So, that's just a tip that was given to me that I'm sharing with you all. Okay, let's see. What else do we have here? Savannah watched Jason and the Argonauts. Good, because there's a Titan in that, and it's the movie I was named after. Wizlaws said, JayDreamerZ, going to check out the Egyptian stuff on the Grand Canyon as well. I don't know, because I'm only going to have one day to really check out as much as I can. So I have a certain spot picked out. I don't know much about the Grand Canyon, but I'm going to acquire as much information as I can while I'm there so that I can go back, so that I can check out specific places that I would like to go to. And I also know that there are a lot of off-limit areas in the Grand Canyon. I would love to check those out as well. And if I have the chance, I will. Paranormal White Noise says, JayDreamerZ, I've done a session with Spirit asking about giants Nephilim, and they answered with, they are true. Well, that's good to hear. Heather says, JayDreamerZ, where'd it go? Oh, I just wanted to say hey and happy birthday. You're awesome. Thank you, Heather. And last but not least is Naseen Kershaw. Says, JayDreamerZ, God of War is based on the World Tree and has Jotunheim and giants. What do you think? I think it's absolutely 100% true. Like I said, these things are cartoonified. They're embellished. There is some artistry that goes with the retelling of these stories. Girl on Fire, I also want to say thank you. But yeah, these it doesn't matter if it's a video game or if it's a commercial or if it's a book or if it's a movie or if it's anything really, I could write, I'm writing a book right now, and someone else will read that book and they may resonate with the things that I share. And someone will say, inevitably, what are your sources? Where'd you get that information, And if they would like to, they can say, oh, well, I got it from this book written by this guy, JayDreamerZ, you know? Well, how did he get this information? You know, there's constantly there's this doubt. Where is the belief, you know? The Bible says love believes all things. Where is the belief? We're not to be naive. We're not to be stupid. We're not to be ignorant or willingly ignorant, right? I don't want to be willingly ignorant. I am ignorant about a great many things. But I am on a path of searching. I'm a truth seeker. I constantly am open to new things. And when I need time to process those new things, I need to be disciplined enough and mature enough to give myself time to process those new things. It's just like eating a good meal. Everything we experience in life, including this video right now, which is why many people jump in, you know, they'll listen to the video for 20 minutes and then they'll leave and go do something else or whatnot. Different people have different appetites. Different people have different tastes in life. And that's all life is we are all sitting down at the table of brotherhood, metaphorically speaking. Quite literally speaking. And we're all sharing a meal with one another. We are consumers. We are this isn't something that's hidden. We're consumers. We're eaters. We eat everything. Your eyes are black and they suck everything into it. Your eyes don't give anything away. They suck everything in. You take everything in. And what I learned to do is to be satisfied with what I take in, to contemplate it, to respect and honor it, and then to do my best to offer a good meal to the next person, or a snack, or a breadcrumb, you know? Okay, so that's all I really wanted to say. I appreciate everyone's dropped in. I just want to let everybody know I'm going to be gone for a little over a month, and I'm going to be working on doing a podcast. That way, the benefit for all of you is I get to provide more content. I could just sit down, record a podcast, and just talk the way I have been, and I could do that nearly every day with no problem. There's no setup involved. There's nothing too much to work on, from what I understand. But this video stuff, as much as I try hard to make it entertaining, to make it something that we can track with, it's very time consuming. And it takes a lot of my time, and it honestly stresses me out a little bit. So I'm going to be working on transferring more into a podcast. I'll still have video for now. And I think that's all I wanted to say. Let me check my notes, make sure there's no other information I need to share with everyone. Nope, that's pretty much it. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and roll the credits. Hopefully I didn't forget anything. I tend to forget stuff from time to time, but that's another story. All right, I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for spending the day with me. And check out these credits from the people who helped to make it all possible. Thank you. Bye.
JayDreamerZ, think outside the box.